Alrighty. Um, I've just been thinking about this for a few days. Um, and I'm just wondering if you have found yourself stuck trying to make a decision and just feeling like you're freezing. You're having a hard time making the decision. And sometimes you see that in yourself, sometimes you see that in other people. And it is kind of, you know, I don't know, it gets me curious, I guess. And so I've done a little bit of research and I sat with that for a little bit and I want to share some stuff with you. So, if you have really ever felt stuck on a choice that should actually be simple, like replying to a text message or answering an email or deciding whether to stay or to go, um, it might not actually be about not being sure, that I don't necessarily have an answer and so therefore I'm having a hard time deciding, so then I'm not deciding. It might actually be a part of where a part of you doesn't feel safe to make a choice. And that's very different from being indecisive by nature, right? When your nervous system links decision making with pain that you experienced in the past, like rejection, regret, or punishment, it can activate a full body response, a full body freeze response most of the time, which is that indecision piece. Not because you're flaky, but because your system is trying to protect you and it doesn't know how else to. So it just goes like, okay, we're just not going to decide. That's just the safest way to go about this. And so you find yourself looping. You spin, you ask yourself, well, should I do this? Should I do that? You ask everyone else what would they do if they were in your shoes. And then even when you receive all these different answers, and you might get different answers, right? People, feeling differently from each other, and you stay stuck. You still can't choose. And so here's a thing to think about. Indecision isn't always about not knowing. It's sometimes that sense of feeling safer to not make a choice. And it begs the question, well, how do I move from that? What is actually happening inside of me that gets me stuck here, and how can I move forward? Um, and so that piece of safety can, but is not always connected to trauma. It can be connected to trauma, but it's not always connected to trauma. So that stuckness can sometimes also feel so physical, visceral, like it's in my body somewhere. And when that happens, you start pushing yourself. You got to decide, you got to decide. And so there's a sense of urgency that comes, and you feel like you have to go faster, which by nature freezes you even more, because if it's about lack of safety, then I just can't. But you also, if you really dig deeper, you'll also find that you actually have different parts of you inside of you that feel differently about it. It's not that all of you feels like I can't make a decision. Sometimes there's a part of you that wants to say yes, and sometimes at the same time there's another part that wants to say no. And then there's that part that sometimes will win, that is just afraid that you're going to make the wrong choice and then you're going to regret it. So that third part has that tendency of freezing us, right? You want to decide, but your body won't let you. You freeze. You ask everyone what they think, thinking that you can unfreeze that part that feels indecisive, and that doesn't work. And sometimes we just come to the conclusion, and I just say to myself, I'm just indecisive and I will never be able to make these decisions. And sometimes when it's really like an important thing, like a crucial thing, a life changing decision, leaving a job, starting a new job, marrying someone, or if you're dating someone, you're not sure if this is the right fit for you. So do I stay with them? Do I break up? Deciding whether you want to have children or you don't want to have children, right? These are like life-changing type of decisions, and it becomes so difficult when my body is preventing me from making that decision. My nervous system is stepping in to protect me, but as it's doing that, it is hindering my movement forward. And so even though it has a good intentions, it's not helping. My brain is learning that choosing can lead to pain. or not learning that now, it's learned that in the past, but it feels so relevant when you have a big decision to make, or sometimes even a small decision to make. And so your body may be reacting to decision making as the idea of making a decision is a dangerous thing in and of itself. And it's not about being unsure sometimes. Sometimes you actually know. You actually are sure. There's a part of you inside of you that goes like, no, this is it, but I just can't move. And it's that feeling of unsafety. And decision, paralysis, if we are to call it that, chronic indecision or decision paralysis, it doesn't always look so dramatic. It can look like putting off answering a text, saying, I'm fine with anything, when really you don't feel like you're fine with anything, avoiding a conversation that you really know that you need to have, staying in a job or a relationship that doesn't feel right, overthinking a very simple choice, then doing nothing about it. And not all indecision, as I said, is rooted in trauma. So sometimes it's just too many options. It's that simple. Or fear of disappointing someone, or fear of feeling disappointed. And actually, a lot of people tell me that sometimes what holds them back is that idea of like, what if there is better and I'm settling? What if there's someone or something better and I'm choosing this? And if I make that decision, I'll miss out, right? So there's that fear of missing out on something that could be better than the options that are available to me right now. And again, it can come from a place of pain where at some point I've made a decision in the past and that didn't pan out the way that I wanted to. And so my body starts responding to decision making as a dangerous thing to do. So it freezes and it just decides, it decides not to make decisions, right? And so when the indecision feels chronic, paralyzing, and emotionally charged, it really is worth for us to get really curious about that. That kind of stuckness is often kind of like an armor, from parts that are learning or had learned that this is unsafe, right? So it is worth for us to really get in there. It's safer not to choose at all. That's one part. And another part is like, no, I can make these decisions. So again, it continues that loop on, and you might get out of it, and you find yourself falling right back into it when something else comes around. And sometimes because there's been times where you've made choices in the past that led to rejection. You were rejected because of a choice you've made, or you were punished because of a choice you made, and maybe when you were a kid, or the decision or a decision that you've made caused chaos or caused regret. And what kind of is, I almost want to say, flawed about this is that we hold ourselves responsible for the results of a decision in its entirety, not focusing too on the fact that other people make decisions and other people respond to decisions we make, and that piece we can't control. But our pain also resides in the fact that it's all on my head. I have to make the right decision, and if I don't, I'm going to cause all of these issues to happen. And so, again, your survival strategy is to hesitate. Your survival strategy is to freeze, because your body remembers. And I just want to emphasize this one more time, that feeling or being indecisive in a moment isn't actually a character flaw. It is a protective pattern, and it's coming from different aspects of you that are in conflict, different parts of you that are in conflict with each other. One that wants to move forward, one that wants to avoid the pain, and one that's afraid to trust yourself, right? It's afraid to trust you. When these aspects get really loud, it's hard to hear your actual true voice. The goal isn't, okay, so just really hear me out. The goal is not to decide faster. Okay, that's not the goal. And I think that's a trap we fall into. It's actually to slow down enough and to get curious about who is speaking inside of you, what parts are actually present for you as you're trying to make this decision. So, my encouragement to you is if you are in a place right now where you're trying to make a decision, you're feeling stuck, stop and just, get curious. Or if the next time something like that comes across your way and you want to kind of prep for that, just think about it right now because you get an opportunity to do that and try to do the following. And so whether this is about something that happened in the past or something that, you're dealing with right now. And ask yourself these questions when you're feeling stuck. What part of me is afraid to choose? Which part of me is afraid to choose? What defines that part? Why is it afraid to choose? What is it afraid of? What is it afraid would happen if it does make a choice? And another question to ask, what is the story that I'm still carrying inside of me? What is that story in relation to? What happened at some point in my past where a decision was made that resulted in something in particular, right? That's the story. What is that story for me? Is it true that I don't know, that I actually can't make a decision? Or is it safer not to know right now? And those are two completely different things from each other. So here's the truth. This isn't about being indecisive. It's about how your system learned to stay safe. You don't need to shame yourself for freezing, or you don't need to shame yourself to rush into clarity. Yeah? Because it becomes really, really, really hard if I do that with myself. So, my encouragement to you is just start by noticing. When you feel stuck, pause, take a breath, and get curious. And that's where the change begins. And this can be material that you can bring into your check-in, and we can talk about it, especially if something is happening right now. Or if this conversation or this video gets you curious, I would encourage you to start writing and journaling around it. And that can be something that we can also touch on in the future, all right?